Welcome to Daily Devotions. My name is Deezy. If you're just joining with us, today is day 20 of our 365-day journey. Yeah, together we're reading the Bible in a year. Well, you don't really have to read it because I'm going to read it to you. And get whatever you can. I hope you have a blessed day today. I hope you all are doing wonderful. I appreciate you joining with me. You know, it's been an awesome ride. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe before we get started, and hit that bell button for some notifications. Today we're reading Genesis chapter 41 verse 17 until chapter 42 verse 17. Let's get started. So Pharaoh told Joseph about his dream. In my dream, he said, I was standing on the bank of the Nile River. I saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up with the river, and they began grazing on the marsh grass. But then I saw 7 sick-looking cows, scrawny and thin, come up after them. I've never seen such a sorry-looking animal in the land of Egypt. These thin, scrawny cows ate the 7 fat cows, but afterward you wouldn't have known it, for they were still as thin and scrawny as before. Then I woke up. Then I fell asleep again, and I had another dream. This time I saw 7 heads of grain, full and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, and these were blighted, shriveled, and withered by the east wind. And the shriveled heads swallowed the 7 healthy heads. I told these dreams to the magicians, and no one could tell me what they meant. Joseph responded, both of the Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows and the 7 healthy grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that come later and the 7 thin heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine. This will happen just as I described it. For God has revealed to the Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt. But afterward there will be 7 years of famine, so great that the prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having 2 similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God, and he will soon make them happen. Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over their land and collect them 1/5 of all crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses. Store it away and guard it so the food will be in the cities. That way there will be enough to eat in the 7 years of famine that come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise this famine will destroy the land. Joseph made ruler of Egypt. Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man, so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one is as intelligent or as wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have rank higher than yours. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain round his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in a chariot reserved for his second in command. And wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, kneel down. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt, and Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift a hand or a foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. Then Pharaoh gave Joseph a new Egyptian name, Zephaniah-Penyah. He also gave him a wife whose name was Esnath. She was the daughter of Potiphera, the priest of On. So Joseph took charge of the entire land of Egypt. He was 30 years old when he began serving in the court of the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And when Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, he inspected the entire land of Egypt. As predicted, for 7 years the land produced bumper crops. During those years, Joseph gathered all the crops grown in Egypt and stored the grain from the surrounding fields and the cities. He piled up huge amounts of grain like sand on the seashore, finally stopping keeping records because there was too much to measure. During this time, before the first of the famine years, 2 sons were born to Joseph and his wife Esnath, the daughter of Potiphera, the priest On. Joseph named his older son Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. Joseph named his second son Ephraim, for he said, God has made me fruitful in the land of my grief. And the last 7 years of bumper crops throughout the land of Egypt came to an end. Then the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph predicted. The famine was also struck all surrounding counties, but throughout Egypt there is plenty of food. Eventually, however, the famine spread throughout the land of Egypt as well, and when people in the cities cried out to Pharaoh for food, he told them, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." So the severe famine everywhere, Joseph opened up storehouses and distributed grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt. And people from all around came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe throughout the world. Chapter 42. Joseph's brothers go to Egypt. When Jacob heard that grain was available in Egypt, he told his sons, "Why are you standing around looking at one another? I have heard there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy enough grain to keep us alive. Otherwise we'll die." So Joseph's 10 older brothers went down to Egypt to buy grain. But Jacob wouldn't let Joseph's brother Benjamin go with them, for fear some harm might come to him. So Jacob's sons arrived in Egypt, along with the others, to buy food, for the famine was in Canaan as well. Since Joseph was governor of all Egypt and in charge of selling grain to all the people, it was him that his brothers came. When they arrived, they bowed before him, with their faces to the ground. Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where are you from?" he demanded. "We are from the land of Canaan," they replied. "We have come to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they didn't recognize him, and he remembered the dreams he'd had about them many years before. He said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see how vulnerable our land is." "No, my lord," they exclaimed. "Your servants have simply come to buy food. We are all brothers, members of the same family. We are honest men, sir. We are not spies." "Yes, you are," Joseph insisted. "You have come to see how vulnerable our land has become." "Sir," they said, "they are actually 12 of us. We, your servants, are all brothers, sons of young men living in the land of Canaan. Our youngest brother is back there with our father right now, and one of our brothers is no longer with us." But Joseph insisted, "As I said, you are spies. This is how I will test your story. I swear by the life of Pharaoh that you will never leave Egypt until your youngest brother comes here. One of you must go and get your brother. I'll keep the rest of you here in prison. Then we'll find out whether or not your story is true. By the life of Pharaoh, if it turns out that you don't have a younger brother, then I'll know you are spies." So Joseph put them all in prison for 3 days. So we'll continue with verse 18 tomorrow. Let's go ahead and move on to Matthew. Today we're reading Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 to 46. Parable of the wheat and weeds. Here's another story Jesus told. The kingdom of heaven is like a farmer who planted good seed in his field. But that night, as the workers slept, his enemy came and planted weeds among the wheat and then slipped away. When the crop began to grow and produce grains, the weeds also grew. The farmer's workers went to him and said, "Sir, the field where you planted the good seed is full of weeds. Where did they come from?" "An enemy has done this," the farmer exclaimed. "Shall we pull out the weeds?" they asked. "No," he replied. "You'll uproot the wheat if you do. Let's both grow together until the harvest. Then I will tell you the harvesters to sort out the weeds, tie them into bundles and burn them, and put the wheat into the barn." Parable of the mustard seed. Here's another illustration Jesus said. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed planted in a field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but it becomes the largest of all garden plants. It grows into a tree, and the birds come and make nests in its branches. Parable of the yeast. Jesus also used this illustration. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast among women used to make bread. Even though she put only little yeast in 3 measures of flour, it permeated every part of the dough. Jesus always used stories and illustrations like this when he was speaking to crowds. In fact, he never spoke to them without using such parables. This fulfilled what God had spoken through the prophet, "I will speak to you in parables. I'll explain things hidden since the creation of the world." Parable of the wheat and weeds explained. Then, leaving the crowds outside, Jesus went into the house. His disciples said, "Please explain to us the story of the weed in the field." Jesus replied, "The Son of Man is the farmer who plants the good seed. The field is the world, and the good seed represents the people of the kingdom. The weeds are the people who belong to the evil one. The enemy who planted the weeds among the wheat is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the harvesters are the angels. Just as the weeds are sorted out and burned to the fire, so will be the end of the world. So the Son of Man will send his angels, and they will remove from his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. And the angels who throw them into the fiery furnace, where they will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. Parables of the hidden treasure and the pearl. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure that a man discovers hidden in a field. In his excitement, he hid it again and sold everything he owned to get enough money to buy the field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant on lookout for choice pearls. When he discovered a pearl of great value, he sold everything he owned and bought it. So we'll pick up at verse 47 tomorrow. Let's go ahead and move on to our psalm for the day. So today we're reading Psalm 18. We're going to be reading verses 1 through 15. I love you, Lord. You are my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my Savior. My God is my rock, in whom I find protection. He is my shield, the power that saves me, and my place of safety. I call on the Lord, who is worthy of praise, and he saved me from my enemies. The ropes of death entangled me. Floods of destruction swept over me. The grave wrapped its robes around me. Death laid a trap in my path. But in my distress I cried to the Lord. Yes, I prayed to my God for help. He heard me from his sanctuary. My cry to him reached his ears. Then the earth quaked and trembled. The foundation of the mountains shook. They quaked because his anger. Smoke poured from his nostrils. Fierce flames leaped from his mouth. Glowing coals blazed forth from him. He opened the heavens and came down. Dark storm clouds were beneath his feet. Mounted on mighty angelic beating, he flew, soaring on the wings of the wind. He shrouded himself in darkness, veiling with his approach with dark rain clouds. Thick clouds shielded the brightness around him, and rained down hail and burning coals. The Lord thundered from heaven. The voice of the Most High resounded amid the hail and burning coals. He shot his arrows and scattered his enemies. His lightning flashed, and they were greatly confused. Then, at your command, O Lord, at the blast of your breath, the bottom of the sea could be seen, and the foundations of earth were laid bare. So we're going to pick this up at verse 16 tomorrow. Let's go ahead and finish up with our Proverbs. We're finishing up in Proverbs chapter 4. We're going to be reading verses 1 through 6. A father's wise advice. My children, listen when your father corrects you. Pay attention and learn good judgment, for I am giving you good guidance. Don't turn away from my instructions, for I too was once my father's son, tenderly loved as my mother's only child. My father taught me to take my words to heart. Follow my commands, and you will live. Get wisdom, develop good judgment. Don't forget my words or turn away from them. Don't turn your back on wisdom, for she will protect you. Love her, and she will guard you. So this has been our day 20 of our daily devotions. Thank you for joining with me. I hope y'all have a really good day, good night. I hope everything is going well with you. Thank you, Lord, for everything that has been given to me in this opportunity to read this Bible with you guys. I am loving each and every day, and it gets better every day as the stories are progressing. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell button for notifications when I post a new video. Go ahead and subscribe to my Patreon at www.patreon.com/YoungNemo for more content. And I can't wait to see you on day 21.